1400 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, held up a tiny black seed and made a statement that the entire field of modern medicine has spent decades trying to understand. He said, "Use this black seed. For indeed it contains a cure for every disease except death. Not a cure for some diseases. Not a remedy that might help with certain conditions. A cure for every disease. In a small black seed that you can buy for almost nothing. That grows in the ground. That was available to every person in every era. And what researchers have found when they put this seed under scientific examination is not a mild confirmation of a general claim. It is one of the most remarkable convergences of ancient prophetic knowledge and modern scientific discovery in the entire history of medicine. Today we are going to go through exactly what they found. And we are going to start with the story of two people who found out about this seed in very different ways, and what it did for both of them. Let us get into this. One of these two people had been sick for 2 years. The other had been healthy her whole life but was about to learn something that would change how she thought about the pharmacy she had been visiting since childhood. Stay with me for both of them because the second story carries something that most people overlook completely when they first hear about this seed. The first person is a man in his early 30s living in the United Kingdom. He had been dealing with chronic inflammation for almost 2 years. Not a dramatic illness. The kind that does not put you in hospital but does not go away either. Joint stiffness that woke him up in the morning. Fatigue that did not lift no matter how much he slept. A foggy quality to his thinking that made his work harder than it should have been. He had seen his GP multiple times. He had done blood work. He had tried 3 different medications, each of which helped slightly and then either stopped helping or produced side effects that created their own problems. He was not getting worse. He was not getting better. He was simply living inside a body that was not functioning the way it was supposed to and had accepted this as his new normal. His grandmother came to visit from back home. She was in her late 70s, sharp-minded, and completely unimpressed with the list of medications on his kitchen counter. She looked at the bottles and she said, "Have you tried the black seed?" He had heard of it. He knew it was something the Prophet had spoken about. He had filed it away in the category of traditional remedies that older generations swore by and that he respected without taking seriously. She went to the market and came back with a jar of black seed oil. She told him to take a teaspoon every morning. He thought it would do nothing. He took it anyway because arguing with his grandmother about medicine was not something he was prepared to do. 6 weeks later something had shifted. Not dramatically. Gradually. The morning stiffness was noticeably less. The fatigue had a different quality, more manageable, more like ordinary tiredness than the specific heaviness he had been carrying. His thinking had cleared in a way he noticed most clearly when he sat down to work. He went back to his GP and had another blood panel done. His inflammatory markers had dropped significantly. His doctor said, "Whatever you changed, keep doing it." He showed her the jar of black seed oil. She took a photograph of the label. The second person is a woman in her mid-20s in Canada. She was not sick. She was studying nutrition as part of her postgraduate degree and she came across a research paper on Nigella sativa, the scientific name for black seed, while searching for sources for an assignment. The paper she found was a systematic review of over 40 studies examining the seed's compounds. And what she found in that paper stopped her completely. Not because the findings were surprising to the researchers. Because they had been sitting in a hadith she had heard her whole life and had never once looked at scientifically. She called her mother that evening and said, "Do you know what the Prophet meant when he said the black seed cures every disease?" Her mother said, "Yes. We have always used it." She said, "No. Do you know what it actually does chemically, what the compounds are and what they have been shown to do in clinical studies?" Her mother said, "Tell me." And she spent 45 minutes going through what she had read that afternoon. And her mother was quiet for a moment and then said, "I always believed him. I just did not know the details. And hearing the details made me believe him differently. Not more. Just differently." The black seed, Nigella sativa, is a small flowering plant whose seeds have been used medicinally for thousands of years across multiple civilizations. The ancient Egyptians used it. It was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Greek physicians wrote about it. And the Prophet of Islam spoke about it with a specificity that no one of his era could have arrived at through observation alone. The active compound that researchers identified as the most significant is called thymoquinone. And what thymoquinone has been shown to do in study after study is what makes the Prophet's statement so precise. Thymoquinone is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds ever studied. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be the underlying driver of the majority of serious diseases in the human body. Cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, certain cancers, neurological decline. The single thread connecting all of these is inflammation that the body is producing and cannot regulate. Thymoquinone interferes with this process at multiple points in the inflammatory pathway simultaneously, something that most pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories can only do at 1 or 2 points. Black seed has also been studied for its effects on the immune system. It does something that is pharmacologically unusual. It modulates the immune response rather than simply suppressing or stimulating it. This means it helps an overactive immune system calm down, which is relevant for autoimmune conditions, while also helping an underactive immune system become more responsive, which is relevant for infections and immune deficiency. A compound that can do both of these things simultaneously is, from a pharmaceutical perspective, extremely rare. Studies have examined its effects on blood sugar regulation and found significant improvements in people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. Studies have examined its effects on blood pressure and found measurable reductions. Studies have looked at its antimicrobial properties and found it effective against a range of bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. Studies have examined its neuroprotective effects and found it may slow certain markers of neurological decline. The Prophet did not say this seed will cure every disease through one mechanism. He said it contains a cure for every disease. The researchers are finding that this appears to be literally true, not because the seed does one thing very well, but because it does many things simultaneously in a way that no pharmaceutical compound has been designed to do. Now the question that the Prophet's statement raises is the question of how. How did a man in 7th century Arabia know this about a seed with enough certainty to teach it as a general medical principle for every Muslim for all time? The answer that Islam gives is consistent and direct. He was taught. Not by studying botany or by running experiments. By the one who created the seed and who created every disease the seed was made to address. This is the part of the story that the woman in Canada sat with longest after she closed the research paper. Not the science itself. The implication of the science. That the knowledge she had been given her whole life, the hadith she had heard since childhood, was not folk wisdom upgraded to religious status. It was specific, accurate medical information delivered 1400 years before the tools to verify it existed. And if that is true about this seed, what else in what she had been taught deserved the same serious attention she had given her postgraduate sources? She finished her degree. She wrote her dissertation on the anti-inflammatory properties of plant compounds with a significant section on thymoquinone. And she kept a jar of black seed oil in her kitchen from that year onward. Not as a replacement for medicine when medicine was needed. As something the Prophet told her to use. And as a daily reminder that the knowledge she had been given was not something to be sorted into the category of tradition and set aside. It was specific. It was accurate. And it was worth taking seriously. If you want to go deeper into the prophetic lifestyle, what the Prophet taught about health, the body, sleep, food and the complete system of Islamic living, it is all in our Complete Muslim's Guide to Islam. There is a full chapter on what Islam says about health and the body covering the Islamic health principles and the du'as for healing. The link is in the description below. The man in the UK still takes black seed oil every morning. His inflammatory markers have stayed down for over a year. His doctor calls it lifestyle management. He calls it following the Prophet. The woman in Canada finished her dissertation and gave a copy to her mother. Her mother read it cover to cover and called her when she was done. She said, "I always believed the hadith. But now when I take the black seed I know exactly what it is doing inside my body. And that knowledge makes the act of following the Prophet feel like something more than tradition. It feels like precision." There is something in a jar or a packet in a shop near you right now that costs almost nothing and that the Prophet of Allah held up 1400 years ago and said use this. Whatever condition you are managing, whatever your body has been carrying, whether you are sick or healthy, take it seriously. It was given to you by someone who knew exactly what he was talking about. Share this with someone in your life who has been dealing with a health issue that nothing has fully resolved. You might be the reason they find something that finally helps.